Sometimes, when you want to make a video, you may not have access to video clips, but only still images. Using still images can make your end product look too much like a PowerPoint presentation. This may not be the effect you want. But what to do? The answer is something called the Ken Burns effect. The first time I took a stab at trying the Ken Burns effect was when I was working on my Charles Manson video in my Serial Killers and Cults series. I was using a lot of still images and needed to liven things up a bit. I had watched other YouTube videos where it seemed like the still images were in motion and wondered, how did they do that? That's when I stumbled upon something called the Ken Burns effect. Here are two images of Los Angeles. You can see down here that I have one here and then one here, if you look at my cursor. The first one doesn't have the Ken Burns effect, it hasn't been added to the image, and the second one, the one down here, the Ken Burns effect has been added to the image. There isn't any actual Ken Burns effect button in Camtasia. You add this effect by using animations in the program. But let me show you the difference. Okay, I'll start the images. Here's the first one. This is Los Angeles, just looking at you all still. And then here's Los Angeles again, where it shows a panorama and it's going across the screen. So the second one seems to be a lot more interesting than the first one. And can you imagine if you were seeing a series of images that just stared at you like this? This would be kind of boring. So that's when you add this effect. The way you do this is you have to go into animations right here. So in animations, you see all this stuff you can do: full opacity, restore, no opacity, scale down, scale to fit, and custom. Now what I'm going to do is right here, I'm going to take this off because this is actually, well, no, I won't. I'll just put the Ken Burns effect on the first one. That seems to be a lot easier, and then I won't have to redo it. So I have selected the first image. Before you can add this animation up here to make your Los Angeles skyline move, you're going to have to set it up the way you want it. So right here, I've set the image so that it will fill the whole screen. But what I want to do is I want to make it look bigger. So I'm going to click on that and then move that so it's a little bit bigger. And what's going to happen is I'm going to make this move from here to here. So I'll click on Custom, and then I'm going to drag it down onto this image. And as you can see, there's this teeny-weeny little arrow that forms. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an arrow key and make this move from right to left, and then stop it there. And notice this image has moved from here to here. Then what you're going to do is you're going to go down here and lengthen it out, and then you're going to right-click on it, and that will open up this menu, and you'll go to Enable Easing. Go down to Exponential In and Out and click on it. Now, let's see what it looks like. So click on the one that's still, and there you've added your Ken Burns effect. Now the reason that you want to go to Enable Easing, you can choose Auto, Linear, Spring, and Bounce. Exponential in and out means that you're telling the image to start moving, and then as it gets to the end of its motion, it will slow down. So that's what that means. And so here's how you do it on these. If you have a city where you want a panoramic view and make it look like that the camera is moving across. Now there are some things where you can do some pretty cool effects, and one of these is one that I like to use a lot. And I used it in my Manson videos. Actually, I used it a lot in the Manson video because I wanted to show somebody or something that was moving down a hall or having it scan to move down the hall. So here's an image that I pulled down, and it's really a hospital corridor, but I had a lot of images that I used on my Manson video that were like prison corridors and things like that. So the first thing that I want to do to make my effect the way I want it is I want to expand this image so that I don't see any of that black space on the side. So I've got it expanded all the way out. Then I'm going to click on it and notice that over here, it says hospital corridor over here. It has scale, opacity, rotation, and all that stuff. The only thing we're going to worry about here is we're going to worry about our scale. Now notice that the scale is 150%, and that's because I yanked on the image until it filled the screen, so it went to 100 to 150%. But I want to make it look like that we are going to be peering down the hall. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my animations, and then I'm going to use custom again. I basically use custom all the time because you can control how fast it moves. So I'm going to pull that down, and then you see that tiny little arrow again. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back up here to scale, and I'm going to change this 150 to 160. And that's going to tell it how much bigger that I want it to be. Then I'll pull the arrow so that it goes all the way through my timeline. Right click and go to exponential in and out. And then it looks like this. Where you're zooming in down the hallway. If you want to make it move faster or whatever, I mean, if I were you, I would fiddle around with this a little bit, because sometimes if you make it to where it gets too big too fast, it's going to look kind of strange. Let me delete this off. And then let's do this one more time. Now we're back to 150%. Let's pull down another one. Now you want to make sure that this little dot is red because that means it's enabled. So that's just kind of an aside. So instead of 160%, let's make it 200%. You can kind of get the hint of how big it's going to get because when I press my enter key, there it is. So I will expand this out. Again, enable easing, exponential in and out. And then let's play this to see how fast it moves in. So if you want it to move in faster, you can do that too. So, you just fiddle around with it and see what you can get. So that's the zooming down the hallway effect in Ken Burns. I took a look at the different ways that creators use the Ken Burns effect, and on one video, I noticed that the images were grouped in threes. What I mean by that is that the first image moved to the left, the next moved to the right, and the other zoomed in. Then it started over again, with the timings being the same. It looks sort of like this. So here is how you do this if you want to mix it up a little. All I really did on the first one is, here, let me get rid of these, and we'll just start all over. So we're going to start back on this one, and I'm going to make this one move in this direction. Notice over here that I have created a space so that I have some room in which to do that. So again, as I showed you previously, you'll bring this down in custom, and then using the key to move it to the left, you'll do that, and then that moves it to the left. So then you should have enable easing, exponential in and out. So then you should have this moving to the left. Okay, so here's our Harvard picture, which is stop moving because I got rid of the animation from it. But if I want to put it back in and move the Harvard picture to the right, I put it back in, and then with it selected, I'll just move it a little bit to the right. And then do what I did with the previous one. Enable easing, exponential in and out, and it will move to the right, like that. And then I have this one of the Berkeley Library, which isn't doing anything right now, but I want that one to zoom in. So I'll go over here, and I'll increase it by, right now it's at 100% scale, so it's full size. So I'll increase it up to 110%, press the Enter key so that it takes, and then go to Enable Easing, Exponential in and out, and then it will zoom in. Okay, so now I have this just like the one that I started off with. So again, I encourage you to play with all this and get what you really like. You don't even have to zoom them in or go left and right. You can make your media go wherever you want it. Let's take this Harvard picture again and put it down here. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Okay, make it a little bit smaller. Move it down a little bit. Make sure it's centered. And then we're going to start here. I don't want it to move left or right or zoom in, but maybe I just want it to move around a little bit. And this is where you're really going to have to play around. So I will go to the right a couple of spaces, go down a couple of spaces, go to the right a couple of spaces. And so what you're doing is you're creating a little line for it to follow, so to speak. And then we do the same thing. We expand it so it covers the whole video timeline timeline image, exponential in and out, and then we'll see what this looks like. Okay, so now it's just kind of wandering around. So, and this is why I encourage you to play with this so you can do whatever you want. As I said before, I just started using it on my Manson video that I've already finished. And if you haven't seen that yet, go out and I'll link it to the end so that you'll see what I mean. And I've been using it ever since. It does take some time to do every image if you're going to do every image, but it does make things more interesting, and it's a way of using Camtasia to make your videos come alive if you have to use still images.